Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. Now, if you've never been here before, or if you've never seen me before, my name is Jakub, and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now, this show, the photography review show, is something I've been doing for over 2 years now. And what we do, we look at your images and try to help you to keep moving forward to get your photography one step ahead and just keep improving with everything that we can help you with. Now, what do? We usually look at three parts of your images. We look at the technical part. This is where we basically look at things like camera settings, exposure, details, noise, and all that good stuff, and see if there are maybe ways you could improve that. After that, we look at the artistic part. This is where we look at things like composition, storytelling, framing, and all of that way on how you create impression on the viewer. And finally, if we have extra time, we then look at ways of how you could edit your image, or maybe I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to edit it even further to make even more impact. So this is what we do. Now, how could you join us? Now, the way to do that, you have to join our membership, which is called Clever Photographer Plus. And to join it, all you need to do is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/forward membership. And there you can very quickly subscribe for a little fee and get access to this photography review show. You also get access to our photographer or Clever Photographer Academy on Facebook. And probably most importantly, you get access to a monthly bundle, which is always focusing on certain photography style, just like now for festive photography. And that bundle usually includes between 200 or 300 assets, anything from luminar and Lightroom presets, textures, overlays, custom brushes, skies, backgrounds, everything you can imagine, and everything that you need to have a lots of fun with your photography. So once again, to join us, to send your pictures already for the next show, all you need to do is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/forward membership. So now let me quickly jump into the comments. Now I can see that we are not broadcasting on Facebook today. There is again some kind of issue with the connection. However, we should be live on our YouTube channel. And looking into comments, I can see that Tony is here. Greetings to you, Tony, from Essex as well. Um, and greetings to everyone who's watching live. So thank you for joining us. If you are watching us on replay, thank you too. Thank you for being with us. And I hope that you're going to find this helpful. So now you know how to join us. You know what we're going to do. And it's time to start. So as usual, when the December comes and we are heading closer to the festive periods, we have less entries when it comes to photos. So we only have 4 photographers, but it will still be fun. So don't worry about anything. Now, quickly into the comments. Greetings to Zdeněk, all the way to South Africa. Zdeněk, happy Mikuláš to you. I know it's tomorrow, but then again, still, I think it's actually today when he went around and give the gifts. Now, for those who don't know, the center of Europe, Poland, Czech Republic, maybe some parts of Germany as well, Slovakia, maybe Hungary as well. There is a tradition which is happening on 5th and 6th of December. And basically, it celebrates St. Nicholas, who used to be a person who would walk around and give a gifts to people. To kids which were poor or didn't have the money, and eventually he became saint. And this tradition kind of carry on, and for many of us, it kind of marks the beginning of the festive season in December. So back in Czech Republic, still people dress as a San Nicholas, go around. The kids tell them a little poem, and they get a little gift. Basically, all of this is organized by the parents, of course, and it's all safe and fun, and it's something that we all remember from childhood. So anyway, this is all out of the way. We have 2 more shows before the Christmas comes. So let's jump straight to it. Folks, starting with the landscape photography and Greg, we're gonna look at his images right here. So we have this absolutely stunning capture of a beautiful sunset with a balloon, lots of beautiful colors, and just beautiful view. And then we have a capture of a steam train right here. So let's start with the first one, where we're gonna look at the camera details. So this was captured with Hasselblad L2D. Now, I would say that this looks more like from a drone, but you could also be in one of these balloons. The lens is 24 millimeters, and from the camera settings, ISO 200, 12.3 millimeters on the lens, and f5 and 1/500 of a second. So maybe if Greg is here, he can let us know what camera he used it to capture it. But in the meantime, we're gonna quickly continue. Now from the camera settings, ISO 200, nice and low. Obviously, the goal always, especially with landscape photography, is to be as close to 100 as possible or as low as possible to make sure that you don't introduce any additional digital noise to your images. Now, from the other settings, f5 with a wide lens like 12.3, perfectly fine, and 1/500 of a second, giving you really nice sun as well. So altogether, it looks very nice. I really like the texture in the sky. I like the balloon. I mean, that's beautiful with the light coming from the direction. I really like the shape of the sun. I think it looks quite natural with a little bit of sun rays coming out of that as well. Lovely colors, lovely sharpness, minimal noise. So altogether, it looks great. So well done on that image. Now, when we talk about composition and storytelling, I think it's also very, very good. It's quite epic scene. Now, there is a lot happening below, but that's fine because anyway, when you look at it, you immediately know what is the scene about. We have talking about the balloon, we're talking about the sun, beautiful warm light. Yes, just very, very nice combination of many different elements together. Yes, I need to zoom in. Combination of many elements together, making it very, very pretty. It just all works together very well. So, Greg, congratulations on this one. It's a lovely picture, well edited and well captured. So the balloon with the sunset. Now, moving on the image number 2, where we're gonna talk about the train. So again, looking at the camera settings here, again, it's a Hasselblad camera, 24 millimeters on the lens, ISO 100, 12.3 millimeters, f5, 1000 of a second. So talking about the camera details here, ISO 100, nice and low, good again. F5 on the f-stop, again with that wide lens, should give you a really nice sharpness all the way through. 1/1000 of a second really freezes the moments, which is really handy when you're capturing the smoke coming out of the train as well as anything that is moving around. So well done, Greg, on this one. Technically well captured as well. I really like, again, the texture in the sky, the colors, the sharpness is very good as well. So all of that works very, very well together, and it's well captured. Now, talking about composition, if there are some wishes or things I wish that wouldn't be there. So one of them is these cars. I think they are a little bit of a distracting on a side. I just wish that you could maybe do one step forward, or you could move the camera forward, just to kind of avoid them. That would be one way to maybe improve the composition a little bit. Also, maybe here in the side, just to take care of little this, just few of these little elements to remove the distraction. And on the top of it, I wish some of these people wouldn't be here neither. Now, it's completely up to you if you want to remove them or not, because I understand that it's difficult to capture these images without people in them. However, I think maybe just the one guy, which would help with the scale, would be enough. So maybe just remove these and then focus on the rest. That would be my suggestion here. But I think the biggest thing for the composition for me would be the cars, which are kind of half cut and they are just a little bit distracting on the side. Other than that, again, the message is clear. Obviously, it's a lovely capture of the train with nice angle from the side, the smoke, the texture, the colors, all of it, I think, works very well together. Now, when we're talking about post-processing, I can see a tiny bit of green haze or green fade in the image, which quite often happens when there is a lot of green, like on this image right here. Obviously, other than the green, there's just lots of very kind of dark pastel colors. So the green is really coming through and affecting other areas. When you look at some of these whites, they look a little bit strong on the green side. So to adjust this, we can very quickly jump into the edit module and adjust the white balance. So to work with the green fade or basically the light leak or the color leak, we can go into the develop tool and here into the color section. In the color section, we have the tint slider where on one side we have the green. So this way we add even more green. And on the other side, we have the pink or magenta. Now, of course, that we don't want to add too much of a pink. However, little bit. So I think probably somewhere around here, which actually is quite low, 31, will not add pink. What it's going to do, it's going to remove the green. And maybe now it's not that visible, but I think if I zoom in a little bit and show you the before and after, I think you will see the difference better. Now we can have a look at the before and after using the slider as well. And I hope you can see it a little bit. You can look into the sky, look into the to the smoke or the smoke coming from the chimney and look at the rest of the image and you can really see the difference of before and after. So just a little bit of this green tint is something that I think needed to be adjusted. And from that point, I think it's quite good. So there you have it. Let's just zoom out. Let's have a look at it. Everything else is looking good. So just the white balance correction, and that's about it. So Greg, thank you very much for sending your photos over. It was great to see them. I hope this was helpful. And in the meantime, we're going to continue and move on to next photographer, which is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, two images from you this week. This beautiful creature right here with a great background, almost like a bokeh background. Let's have a look. And then we have this very dramatic black and white desert capture with a very dramatic dark mountains at the back. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the animal. First of all, captured with the Canon RP with the Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters. From the camera settings, ISO 500, 300 millimeters on the lens, f8 and 1/500 of a second again on the shutter speed. So for the wildlife photography, ISO 500 actually isn't really that much. I've seen much higher numbers there, so quite nicely manageable. Then we have the 300 millimeters, so really punched in, zoom in on the animal, which works really, really well here. F8, so you have 300 millimeters and next to it the f8. So with that long lens, the f8 actually gives you a really nice background, almost like a bokeh background, which I think works really nicely. And the 1/500 of a second works quite well. I think it gives you quite nice, sharp image. Now, there is something on the post-processing where you can see just a little bit of that artifact. So it's sharp, but it's kind of sharp in not a strange way, but you can basically see that it almost becomes a little bit like a watercolor. Not necessarily around the head, but around the fur here. You can see how, yeah, it's just a little bit visible here. So I don't know if you were removing noise or if you were adding extra sharpness, but it's just a little bit visible, Elizabeth. So that would be my point there. The color, the white is the light is quite nice. Other than the artifacts, the sharpness is quite good. So all of that I think is good. However, you can just see a little bit of that kind of diffusion on the image. When we're talking about composition, I think it's really nicely done. I really like the framing of the animal in the middle. There's a lot of space in front of it. The animal is all there. I really enjoy the contrast as well of the animal. So the colors of the kind of natural bright and brown in comparison with the dark green, I think really helps the subject to stand out. The only thing I would say is that I think the background could be a little bit darker as it has these bright elements already and it's quite bright on its own. So put together, I think it's just, if it would be a little bit darker, I think the main subject would stand out a little better. So we can actually adjust that very quickly, again, by going into the edit module. And here we can, for example, try to adjust the relight tool where you can adjust the brightness near of the camera and brightness far from the camera. So let's go ahead and use the brightness far. So what it does then, it basically takes the background and you can darken it or you can brighten it. So for us, we're just going to bring it down a little bit. Let's have a look before and after, and maybe just add a touch of brightness to the main subject. So something like this, that would be my first thing. I would make the background a little darker so then the main subject stand out. After that, I can also see a little bit of blue tint on the subject, especially around here. So to adjust this as well, we can again use white balance option in a develop panel. And we're going to take the temperature slider where on one side we can make the image cooler. And on the other side, we can make the image warmer. So what we want to do, we want to keep an eye on this part of the image. I hope you can see it, where there is a little bit of blue tint here, here, and here. So we just keep an eye on that, and we're gonna add a little bit of warmth to remove it. Let's have a look. I think somewhere around here. Once we do that, we then gonna apply this locally by using mask only to these parts. So for this, once we still have the tool selected, we're gonna go into the masking, brush, paint, strength down to 30, adjust the size of our brush, and then very easily just brush over the animal and specifically over the parts where there is the blue tint. So let's have a look. That's better. And over the fur here as well. I think that is much better too. Let's have a look. Perfect. Right here. And maybe right here. Now let's double check before and after. And I don't know if you can see it much on the video. However, it really does help to remove that unnatural tint again. So let's see if I use the slider again. So I'm going to close this and use the slider. If you can see the tint on the animal or not, I hope you can. And by using the brush and masking and the white balance, I think it helps a lot. So that's the animal, little darker background to get the main subject stand out, and little white balance correction on some part of the animal. Coming back and moving on to your second image, which is this dramatic landscape. Now, this actually is really, really cool. But first, let's start talking about the camera setting. Again, Tamron RP, Canon RP with the Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters. From the camera settings, we are on ISO 100, f13 on the f-stop, and shutter speed on 1/400 of a second. 133 millimeters on the lens, so really, again, quite far zoom. ISO 100 is a spot on, especially for landscape photography. F13, yeah, I mean, there is not necessarily anything near to you or close to you, so I think something like F9 or F11 would be perfectly fine. 1/400 of a second, looking at the image, there doesn't seem to be anything overexposed. If anything, it's the opposite. I think some parts are looking a little bit too dark. So I think the shutter speed is fine. It's more the f-stop where I would go a little bit lower just to make sure that you get the most out of your lens. And that's about it. Now, zooming in, the sharpness is quite decent, specifically on the foreground. I think it works really well. Also, the background, you can see the sharpness go all the way through. So that's very nicely done. The light is very interesting, creating lots of different angles and lots of contrast on the image. So that looks quite cool too. One thing I noticed here, you have a little bit of sensor dust, which we will remove a little later, but definitely something to keep an eye on. There are some in the sky as well, so keep an eye on that, especially when you're sharing your images. And I think technically that's about it. Now, talking about composition, I think it works quite nicely. You have the bright foreground as an opener for the image. I think that works quite well. I like the texture. I like the depth. Um, I quite enjoy that kind of very wide crop, so that all works very well too. But it's more the level of the blacks, which I find quite heavy or maybe just a little bit overboard. You have like a really, really super contrast between the brighter part and then some of these really dark parts, which really look like completely dark and almost burned out. And I think if there would be just a tiny bit of details in these areas, I think that would help. It would just help to the overall image. I also think the background compared to the foreground again is a little bit over darkened, so that's something I think that would also need a little bit of balance and help there. So that's for that. Now, when we're talking about the post processing, we can remove the sensor dust. Now, generally, every photo editing tool has some kind of tool you can use for this. Here in Luminar Neo, it's erase tool, and the erase tool actually has an option called remove dust spots. So what it's going to do, it's going to actually scan the image, and just like magic, it removes the dust spots on its own. So let's have a look before and after, and that's that. So you don't have to select anything, remove anything. It basically does it all for you. So I really enjoy that part. So we have taken care of that. Now, again, I mentioned that some parts are really dark. So let's see if maybe by going into the develop tool and opening a little bit the shadows, if we could balance it. So let's have a look. There's actually not much left there to open. Maybe we would need to even add a little bit of white, but is this a little bit better? Maybe just tiny bit better. You would have to use a little bit of masking for it as well, maybe just to apply these to some of these parts of the image, so that way you don't basically open everything. So just somewhere around here and maybe here. And by doing that, I think everything would balance itself a little bit better. However, it's very creative way to capture the image. I really enjoy the landscape. The composition is quite nice. I love the depth. I love the texture. I love the framing. I think that all of that works very well. Technically, it's very well done. I really enjoy the sharpness and all of that together. So maybe just a little bit of balancing the contrast between the two elements, which I think would help a little bit to bring everything together. Elizabeth, thank you very much for sending your images over. It was great to see them again. And make sure you send more of them next week. Quickly jumping into the comments. Joe, good evening to you, to Belgium as well. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us live here at YouTube on our Clever Photographer channel. Greetings to William as well. And again, hello to Zdeněk and Tony. Moving on, moving to Tony and his images right here. So what do we have? Now we have this beautiful capture. Now, Tony, this, if you would apply to it a little texture with some nice blend modes, could be almost like a painting on the wall. I mean, that looks great. This would look amazing if you would apply like a canvas texture and maybe like a screen or overlay blend mode. It would look great. Definitely something you should try and see what result you would get. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Lots of details. I really enjoy the more dominant light coming from the side. I think that all works together. It's just very, very nice. Well done, Tony. On this one, Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you for sharing this lovely capture with the Christmas image. This is also very interesting. I'm assuming that's butterflies eating some sort of fruit. Let's have a look if we have a comment there. Nothing there, but very interesting scene. Yeah, 3 butterflies enjoying something what looks like maybe plum or apricot or something like that. And then this gentleman walking over with, so I'm assuming that's a chameleon with lots of colors and movement over the piece of wood. So for images, let's start with the first one because I was really impressed by that. So unfortunately, there is no camera details there, but that's fine. We can still have a look at the image. When we zoom in, you can see that the details are very decent. There is a little bit of noise and pixelation, which could be coming from the JPEG transition. But in overall, when you look at it, the colors are nice. The light is lovely. The saturation is very good. And the sharpness is also very good. So very, very good on that. I really enjoyed this image. The light from the side, one more time, I think works very well as well, giving the scene really nice highlights and very kind of live effect. So well done there. Composition is great. One more time, I really enjoy that square or almost square crop on these especially on these compositions, I think it works really well. It kind of gives a sense of order and balance, and that is just I just think it works, because if you would have extra space on the top and the bottom, yes, it would maybe work, but it's just this is just very much kind of full on impact of the main subject, which I think works really well. Also, the contrast of the background with the flowers and with the live colors works very, very well. So, lots of good stuff here. Very well done. Congratulations on this one. Now, the butterflies. Okay, so let's have a look at it. Butterflies eating orange. Okay, so it's a lovely capture with lots of details. It's very interesting, of course, from the kind of wildlife macro point of view. Like talking about the camera settings on this one was Canon 1000D with the 18 to 55 millimeters on the lens. And from the camera settings on this, ISO 400, f5.6 and 1/80th of a second. So um, camera setting wise, ISO 400 again for this type of photography, perfectly fine. F5.6 giving you decent sharpness. I mean, you can see that these parts of the or this part of the butterfly is a little bit out of focus, but the rest of it looks quite nice. Maybe just a little bit here as well. So I think the sharpness is decent. I really like the fact that the center where everything is happening is sharp, and then everything kind of work out from it. 1/80th of a second, I'm assuming when they were eating, maybe they were kind of slow, so even that shutter speed gives you very, very nice result. So technically I think it's done. The light is decent, the sharpness is good, all the colors are good. However, I don't know what is it with it, but it's just not very aesthetically appealing to me. I think there's a little bit of distraction with the corner, also a little bit with the back. The colors together, maybe because already the butterflies isn't very colorful. My eyes get constantly attracted by the orange because it's brighter and it's also more colorful. So for some reason, my eyes keep going there, which is not necessarily a problem because it's the center of the image. But I think it's a shame when you have these three beautiful um, animals or butterflies. What I think also doesn't necessarily work on the image is the fact that the large part of the background is similar color as the butterflies. So again, they kind of blend in and it just creates kind of not it creates a flat scene a little bit. So what I would do, I would crop this away or erase this away, maybe also this background, darken the background quite a bit to kind of get radius of that, remove saturation from the background maybe a little bit as well. Then I would take the erase tool and just erase some of these bits around just to remove any distractions you can, and then really focus on the what's happening in the center. What you could do, you could remove a little bit of the orange using, for example, the HSL panel. Again, just to remove a little bit of the attention from it. So maybe just somewhere around here. That's what I would do for this one. And similarly, like before, we could adjust and the brightness of the background just like this. Let's have a look. Yep, something like this to make it a little bit darker. Then we say that we would remove this part. So let's select it and see if that will manage. So we can do something like this. Yeah, it's half decent. You could use the gen erase here, but we can do something like this as well. Let's see if we need to crop it a little bit closer, maybe just a little bit. No, just a little bit, maybe something like this. So we get radius of the bag here. And what else we could do? We could use the enhance AI just to balance it. No, that's brightening the background again. So maybe a little mystical tool just to bring stuff out. And then basically just brighten up the main subjects with a little bit of masking. So something like this. And this, let's have a look. Yep, I think that helps too. And finally, just as William suggests, maybe a little vignette would help as well, just to close the image even further with, again, a little bit of inner light in the middle. Maybe not. Let's have a look. before and after, just little cleaner, little more focus on the main subject, remove a little bit of the focus from the background and the orange, and help the butterflies to stand out. So, Tony, thank you very much for this image. Also, the first one. Let's quickly look at this one, just very quickly now, with the camera details being Canon 1000D. The lens was 18 to 55 millimeters. And from the camera settings here, ISO 800, f8, 1/160th of a second. Now, I really enjoyed the sharpness on the animal, the texture, the light, and the color all look really good. Here, actually, the green color with the brown background works very, very well. The camera setting is also very good. The focus mostly on the animal on the front works really well too. A little bit of extra space in front of it helps to make it look a little bit more natural. So all of that is great. The edit is very natural as well. So well done there. And actually, I think it's well handled. Again, you could obviously, as always, try to do different things. You could apply a little bit of vignette to add more focus on the animal. Then you could also apply a little bit of structure AI to get the texture stand out even further. And one more time, we could darken the background a little bit more just to add more focus on the main subject. So something like this, just very quickly. I don't want to take too much of your time on this one, but basically this is the before and after. Maybe it's a subtle change, but you will see when you would show somebody this image, it would just basically um, it would keep them a little bit longer. It would bring more attention to what you're trying to show. So Tony, thank you very much for all your images. As I said, if you have a time and effort, maybe for next week, try to add a little bit of texture to it. I think it would be a lots of fun and it could really give you great results. Which brings us nicely to fourth photographer of the week, which is Zdeněk. Zdeněk, the usual mix of landscape and wildlife photography. Now, I have to say, I love this one. This is a great, great capture. Zdeněk, if you have a moment, give me a hint in the comments on what camera you use to capture it. However, from the other details, Canon 55 to 250 millimeters, with the camera settings ISO 400, 194 millimeters, f6.3, and 1/400th of a second. So from the camera settings, ISO 400, again, for the wildlife photography, obviously looking at the light, maybe starting to slow down a little bit. I think that that's perfectly fine. f6.3 with 194 millimeters gives you quite nice softer background, and 1/400th of a second give you really nice sharpness as well. So well done on that. Now, talking about the camera, coming back to it, Zdeněk, thank you very much. So it was captured with Canon 77D. Now, in overall, when I look at it, I really enjoy the light coming from the kind of side, making the face and the edge of the animal stand out. I think that's very lovely. Now, looking at the face, that's really, really nice, giving us that nice, almost Rembrandt-like fade over the face. So that is really, really lovely. The sharpness is very good. The details are very good. So technically, I think it's well handled. Composition wise, I also really enjoy it because probably one of the most important things I think when it comes to photography is when you show your image to someone, they need to be able to tell you what you're trying to show them. So many times I see very complex and complicated situations, and there's just too much distractions and too much happening in the image. Where on this one, immediately you know what you're trying to show. It's all about the animal. Thanks to the color and luminance contrast, it really stands out. It's clearly there, and I think it works very well. I mean, for me, this image is pretty much ready to be printed, put on the wall, because I think it would looks great. So Zdeněk, well done, great picture. Composition wise, well done. I really enjoyed the space in front. I love the framing. Um, Again, very kind of natural edit. So altogether, it's really, really great. Well done, Zdeněk. Thank you for sharing this image with us. when we're talking about this one, now this is an example where it's not necessarily clear what you're trying to show right from the beginning. Now there is this tree which is standing out, yes, but there is lots of other things happening on the image. You have the palm, and you have the bush, and you have the rocks, and you have the other green parts. And so where here it's clear, straightforward, immediately you can understand what you're trying to show. On the second one, there's just lots happening and nothing is really standing out. So it's basically just like a piece of landscape. So that would be, I just wanted to point the difference between the two. But we're gonna go back to the beginning and we're gonna start with the camera details. Again, Canon 600D with 18 to 55 millimeters on the lens, ISO 100, f10, and 1/250th of a second. So from the camera details, I think the ISO is fine, f10 perfectly fine, especially when you have an element closer to the camera. So that's all good. 1/250th of a second again give you perfect exposure, so all good there. The sharpness is also very good. Now the light is a little bit harsher. You can see it in the shadows on the bush and around there as well. But I think it's not really about the technical part. I think it's more about the composition, what we could do from it, how you could move around to really get that wood or that log to stand out. I think that would be a really my question. So could you crop it around so it's maybe more dominant, or could you more position it over the rule of thirds golden points to get it stand out, or could you edit it in such a way that it stand out further? I'm not sure. It's just different things to really get it work. Now I'm just kind of thinking what we could try to do. We could try to crop it a little bit around. So let's try to do that. If we switch to free and we go down a little bit, so we use 2/3 of the ground, 1/3 of the sky, and then we position the log over the rule of thirds line. So we do something like this. So immediately we will get more attention on that. After that, because of the harsh light and everything, I would turn it to black and white. And what I would do, I would add a lot more structure. So something like this. With that being done, we can then apply a little stronger vignette. So somewhere around here and a little bit more brightness to the center. After that, we can apply a little bit of mystical tools, a little bit of glow and smoothness to the image. And finally, just a little bit of dramatic tool, again, to add a little bit of more contrast, more structure, more details, and all that other good stuff. So after this, it looks a little bit better. Let's have a look before and after, maybe with a little bit of matte tool to make it a little bit more cinematic. And what I would do finally, just close the image a little bit from the top. So minus exposure, masking, linear gradient from the top down. So let's say somewhere around here. Then bring it back up and see if that will help a little bit. So again, something like this. And adding more focus on this area of the image. So we're gonna do little radial gradient to this part. So let's have a look and see what it does. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. And that's about it. So Zdeněk, from where we started, it's just a few things we tried. So we crop it differently to add more focus on this piece of wood. We have then turned it to black and white to remove the distraction of the color and dark shadows. Then we have added a little bit of clarity and dramatic tool to add more clarity, more details, more contrast. And then we just finish it off with a little bit of local adjustments where we close the sky to remove so much brightness from there. And we have added more focus towards the center with the use of vignette and also radial gradient. So Zdeněk, just something to try, something different for next time. I love the first image. I think it's brilliant. And for me, definitely one of my favorite images I've seen this week. So well done on that. And that's about it. So folks, thank you very much for joining me this week. Greetings to all of you for staying behind and watching the show. Trevor, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed. Uh, Thank you to Zdenek as well. Folks, have a great evening. Have a great week. And I will be back again next week on Tuesday. So if you need, I will be posting the dates to the Facebook group right now. And I will also put them into the membership so you can access them and you can post your photos. Folks, have a lovely evening. Thank you for joining me again. And I'm looking forward to see you next week.